Hi Mentor, this is Rosalie, and today my husband and I are rendering some fat, and we're going to take you through this process. We render fat for several different reasons. One, we use some of the rendered fat, what we call our grade A, for cooking purposes. Our grade B rendered fat we use for salves, and if we end up with some grade C fat, then we use that for burning in some candles, which I can show you later. So we're going to take you through this process today, and we have here some bear fat that we were gifted this week. And of course, you might not have bear fat, but you can get fat from butchers, even your local grocery store. If you just go to the butcher section or the meat section, ask the butcher, tell them you'd like some fat. For eating purposes, we always try and get the grass-fed lard, because otherwise it has an icky ratio of omega-6s to omega-3s. So the grass-fed stuff is what you want if you're going to be using this for food. So what we have here is just a piece of fat that, straight off from the animal. And what you want to do when you get your fat is that it'll have different impurities on it. It'll have places where the muscles were attached or places where the muscles were the meat. So Xavier's going to show us how he just kind of slices off some of those parts, and he's just going to do a thin slice, and you'll see after he's finished slicing here, so you can see how it's that beautiful white creamy stuff there. If you can see that alright. So that's what we want all of the meat to end up looking, and we have a pile here of different fat that we've been showing, and we're going to cut that up into smaller pieces for later on, but for right now this is what we've got. And if you've never worked with fat before, it's much easier to work with it when it's either really cold or partially frozen, so it's really tough cutting through warm meat. So if you're finding that your knife's not going through, then you can throw it in the freezer for 20 minutes or so and get it a little bit colder. So let's go back to the other meat, or the other lard, and if you turn that over, you can see like this little strip of meat there. So you want to get rid of all of the meat on your lard. So, and obviously you want to do it without getting much of the lard with it, but yeah, just try and slice up all of the meat there. And so depending on how much lard you get, you want to work all of your pieces and get it so that everything's looking nice and white and shiny, the impurities are taken out, and all of the meat's taken out. So that is the first step in rendering the lard, and we'll show you the next step in a minute. Okay, so here we are in the next step of the process. So what we've done is we've taken our bear fat, or whatever kind of lard and fat you're using, and we've cut off most of the meat and any of the impurities that we could find. So what you see here is some fat that's been chopped up into smaller pieces, and you can see that's relatively white. And there might be, a couple pieces of meat here and there, and that's not a big problem. You just want to get most of it out of the way, which we've done, and then chopped it up like I said. And we have it on the cast iron, and we're going to cook it down on the wood stove, which is our primary source of cooking. But obviously this works on whatever kind of stove you got. You just want to make sure it's on low heat. And so I don't know if you can see through the camera there, but it's starting to melt a little bit in there. And I'll show you what it looks like when this is melted down a little bit. Just want to show you this next step. And also something I forgot to mention is what kind of fat you're looking for, and you really want the hard fat. There's a couple different kinds of textures of fat, and some of it's kind of slimy and it's slippery and thin. You can definitely, it's very pliable, and what you really want is the hard stuff. So this is our grade A quality hard stuff, and so we're going to let it sit here on the stove for a little bit, let it render down some, and then we'll show you that. I also wanted to show you our wood stove's working hard. We also have some beeswax that we're rendering here. You can see it's about halfway through, but that's a whole other video I'll have to show you later. So next step of the rendering fat coming up next. Well, it's been a half hour since we last checked in with you folks, and I wanted to show you what this was looking like. Again, we have this on really low heat because we don't want the fat to overcook and become rancid. But you can see that it's quite translucent now, and it has a much squishier feel to it. It's not hard like it was. And you can see in here, there's a nice bit of liquid fat starting to form at the bottom. So we're just going to keep cooking this on low and let the fat slowly render and turn to liquid. And we'll check back in with you when something happens.